The party was already loud when I arrived. Music echoed through my aunt's backyard, children were running between tables, and relatives I hadn't seen in years were gathered in little circles pretending to be happy to see one another. It was the kind of family event where everyone smiled with their mouths but judged with their eyes. I almost didn't go, but my mother had called 3 times that week insisting I show up. "Don't embarrass us by disappearing again," she said. That should have been my warning. Still, I went. I wore a simple black dress, brought a polite smile, and told myself I could survive one evening of fake conversations and subtle insults. For the first 30 minutes, things were manageable. A few cousins nodded at me. My uncle asked about work. My grandmother squeezed my hand and told me I looked tired, which was her version of affection. Then my parents arrived. Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe because every voice deserves to be heard. My mother spotted me first, and I knew immediately from her expression that she was in one of her moods. Sharp smile, cold eyes, perfect posture. My father followed beside her, already holding a drink, already looking annoyed by something that hadn't happened yet. They came straight toward me. "Well," my mother said, looking me up and down. "You actually came?" I said I would. I replied calmly. My father scoffed. That would be a first. I ignored that. I had spent most of my life ignoring comments like that. To my parents, I was always the failed child. My brother was the golden one, married, polished, successful, always saying the right thing. I was the difficult one because I made choices they didn't approve of. I changed careers twice. I moved out without their blessing. I refused to stay in a relationship they loved just because it looked respectable from the outside. In their minds, independence was rebellion. And rebellion was shameful. I should have left right then. Instead, I stayed. Dinner started an hour later. Everyone gathered under the lights strung across the yard, plates full of grilled food, glasses clinking, conversations rising and falling. My mother stood to make a toast for my grandparents' anniversary. At first, it sounded normal. She thanked everyone for coming. She praised family, loyalty, tradition. Then her tone changed. "Family," she said, lifting her glass, "is about values. It's about raising children who honor the people who sacrificed for them." A few relatives nodded. I felt my stomach tighten. She turned slightly, not fully looking at me, but enough. "Unfortunately," she continued, "not every child understands that." The table went quiet. My father gave a dry laugh and added, "Some children choose selfishness, chaos, and bad decisions over dignity." My face burned. I could feel everyone pretending not to stare. My mother sighed dramatically. "What can we do? Every family has one disappointment." Then she looked directly at me and said the words I'll never forget. "You are the biggest disgrace to this family." The silence after that felt enormous. No one defended me. No one told them to stop. Even my brother just stared at his plate. For a second, I couldn't move. It was like every cruel thing they had ever said to me in private had finally been dragged into the light for public entertainment. My mother sat down slowly, satisfied. My father took a sip of his drink. And that was the moment something inside me changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. I stood up. My chair scraped hard against the ground, making several people jump. My mother folded her arms. "Sit down. Don't make a scene." But I was done protecting their image. If they wanted to humiliate me in front of the entire family, then for the first time in my life, I was going to tell the truth. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Everyone was staring now, some curious, some uncomfortable, most silent. I could feel the weight of every judgmental glance, but it didn't stop me. "I suppose you all think you're perfect," I began, my voice calm but strong. "That every decision I've made is wrong, that I've disappointed you all somehow. But here's the truth. I live my life on my terms because I refuse to let fear, shame, or your expectations dictate my happiness." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? You will sit down right now." I shook my head. "No. Tonight, I'm not here to perform for you or anyone else. I'm here to be honest. You've called me a disgrace, humiliated me, and dismissed me my whole life, but I am not ashamed of who I am. Not anymore. There was a ripple of murmurs around the table. Some relatives looked shocked, some impressed, and a few looked like they wished they hadn't come. My father leaned forward, face red. "You ungrateful." I held up a hand. "Let me finish. You think I am a disgrace because I don't follow the path you laid out for me. You think success is only measured by your definitions, money, status, appearances. But I have built a life filled with meaning, with people I love, with work I care about. And unlike you, I didn't need to step on others or belittle someone weaker to get here." My brother shifted uncomfortably. My mother opened her mouth to interrupt, but I went on. "I've survived disappointment, betrayal, and neglect. I've made mistakes, yes, but I've also made choices that brought me growth, independence, and dignity. And if that makes me a disgrace to you, then maybe it's time you reconsider what dignity truly means." The words hung in the air. My mother's lips tightened, and my father slammed his hand lightly on the table. "How dare you speak to us like this?" I didn't flinch. "I dare because I refuse to shrink any longer. I've spent years fearing your judgment, waiting for approval that will never come. I am done waiting, done apologizing, done being your punching bag for your insecurities." A cousin whispered something, clearly impressed. Another aunt shook her head in disbelief. And my sister looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Shocked, angry, confused. "I will no longer let your words define my worth," I continued. "I am proud of my life, proud of my choices. And if that makes me a disgrace, so be it. But I know who I am, and no one at this table will ever change that." The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My parents were furious, but I noticed something else. A few relatives looked uncomfortable, realizing perhaps that I had spoken truths they'd been afraid to voice themselves. For the first time, I felt a sense of calm amid the chaos. I had claimed my voice. I had drawn a line. And in doing so, I realized something vital. Dignity wasn't something they could take from me. It was something I owned entirely on my own. I stood taller, took a slow breath, and finally smiled. Because tonight, for the first time in my life, I was free. My parents were frozen, mouths slightly open, unable to respond. The relatives around the table exchanged glances, some embarrassed, some impressed, but no one dared interrupt. My sister's face had gone pale, and I could see the disbelief in her eyes. She had expected me to cower, cry, or apologize. But I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "You think you can just stand there and insult your family?" I shook my head calmly. "I'm not insulting anyone. I'm speaking the truth. You've called me a disgrace my whole life, dismissed my achievements, and undermined my independence. I'm not here to play your games or live by your rules anymore." My father slammed his hand on the table. "We've given you everything. You ungrateful.